Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. Place for the most heat anywhere, the most heat information, conversation, celebration, and lately consternation. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. Link in the description. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge. You'll want to be there for the transaction channel and the draft channel, if nothing else, this offseason, and we know that may start tomorrow. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. Also check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's Prize Picks. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. PrizePicks.com, the official fantasy partner of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. You can play up to 6 players together across the sports spectrum. They've got everything on there, and it is legal in the state of Florida. I'm repeating, legal in the state of Florida. Yes, we know that outfit in Hollywood, but they didn't push this one quite out. So check it out. It's Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. More episodes. That's what you need, more episodes. We've already got a couple out before Game 4, which is 7:30 tonight at the arena. Of course, the Miami Heat, are down 3-0. There would have to be a major choke on the other side for them to get back in the series. Down 3-0 to the Cleveland Cavaliers, coming off a 37-point home loss in Game 3, the worst playoff loss in franchise history. 2 episodes are up right now, and one that I did with Brady on I did this one with Alex on Andrew Wiggins and his struggles throughout the playoffs so far and what it means for the future. And then another one that I did with Brady about how Tyler Herro can counter the way that the Cavaliers are defending him. But I mentioned on that podcast that right before we started that pod, there was an article that dropped in the Athletic written by Joe Varden, who's actually been in town covering the team. Joe's based in Cleveland, but he has done some Heat-related articles in the past, and I've known Joe for, just full disclosure, I've known Joe for more than a decade. When I covered the Cavs in Cleveland in 2014-15, when Bleacher Report sent me up there, Joe was one of the reporters who was added to the Cavs beat because LeBron had come back there. And so Joe basically covered LeBron pretty much exclusively and then moved to covering the rest of the NBA. So I know Joe, and I, so I have some backstory on this. And I just wanted to, again, make sure that the comments were real. I think we were starting this, and the comments I'm talking about were Tyler Herro's comments. And my understanding of Tyler Herro's comments, and I've got Eternal Bast. You can follow him at Eternal Bast. You can also check him out on our Discord server, which is Off the Floor, and also on Playback. Check that out, playback.tv/5RSN. I'm not really intending to bring Eternal on for everything that's potentially controversial with Tyler, although it's the rotation has just turned out that way. So anyway, I'm referring to Tyler's comments he was quoted in The Athletic. As far as I know, these comments were meant to be on the record. I haven't heard anything other than that. Tyler can be a little bit free-flowing with his speech at times in private conversations with reporters, but my understanding to this point is that there's an understanding that these comments were on the record. And I'm going to read you the comments, Eternal, because people had a very distinct reaction to them. And I just feel like if we don't at least address this, it's sort of a major hole in our coverage before Game 4. So this is the parenthetical from The Athletic. Now Herro, again, this quote supposedly were prior to Game 3, but released after Game 3, which was Tyler's worst game of the postseason, where he scored 11 points. Now Herro faces a distinct crossroads, wanting to prove he can lead a team in the postseason while reflecting on what could have been if Butler never forced his way out. Here's the quote, and here's the parenthetical with it. Obviously, I know I need Jimmy to win. If we had Jimmy right now, I feel like it'd be a completely different situation. Herro told The Athletic before Game 3. We probably wouldn't even be the 8th seed. So finding that middle balance of like, damn, we need him, but also understanding, shit, that's his career, and what he wants is ultimately his right. What is excuse me, let me read that again. That's his career, and what he wants is ultimately his right to want what he wants. It was just tough to be in the middle of both sides. Give me your immediate reaction to that, and then we'll try to, add the context to this. Okay. What was your immediate reaction when you read the quote?
Because we had a lot of different quotes this season, right? We've seen Tyler and Jimmy at like post game talking about 1A, 1B, right? Then we've seen kind of the lead up, the fallout before Jimmy got traded, kind of just the company line quotes from Tyler, Bam, Spo, all of that there, which albeit like, all fair to them, like I understand. And then you get quotes after the Jimmy trade, weeks out, right, where it kind of seemed like a high was being rolled, and then the quotes there were interesting. So like taking all of that into consideration, these quotes just is like, I'm sorry, like they were hilarious. I was just like, are you serious?
Why hilarious? Why hilarious?
Because it felt in a very professional, like, I've learned a lot from you, so I try to stay professional, right, and objective. So it felt very like you want your cake and want to eat it too, kind of thing, right? Like he popped a lot of shit after the trade, right? Like we got guys that want to win, like want to be here, kind of thing, yada yada, right?
He wasn't the only one, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a whole bunch of we got guys here who want to be here, right?
Right.
You cannot say these quotes, period. But you can't say them during the playoff tail. The playoff tail, and you're not having a great series. You are kind of having a worse series than you were last year, right?
Well, through the first two games, I wouldn't. I mean, we talked about the defense, right? That part, but offensively, he was putting up numbers through the first two games. I just want to be fair there. Like the worst game came after the quotes, right? The worst game came after the quotes. He had gone after Garland. Well, he replied to Garland, right? That also came after game 2, but that was in a group setting. That was I guess after practice. But these comments were made directly to Varnum before game 3, but prior to what turned out to be his worst game of the season. I just want to be fair there. The other comment he made, by the way, he was kind of all over the place with his comments, and I appreciate his candor, by the way. So that's why I'm always hesitant on this stuff, because then we tell guys, oh, be quiet, don't say anything. And then it's like, okay, they're boring. Tyler tends to speak his mind. Sometimes he pulls it back a little bit. Sometimes he says, like, I remember he seemed to get irritated at me the night before the All-Star voting was announced. I'm not even thinking about that. And then we saw the next day, I mean, he said that to my face. And then the next day he was like, there was cameras of him celebrating when he got announced. Okay. So he does this kind of thing occasionally, but overall, okay. I do appreciate the fact that he will speak with some honesty. And then he was given praise this media day. If you remember, a media day that Jimmy showed up late for, he was given praise for the way he handled media day this year. He just wanted to win. He didn't care about this or this or this.
He didn't care about that. All of it.
No, nothing. But then also, yeah, no, we did. But then also the other part I want to mention here, Eternal, is then after Jimmy was traded and then at All-Star Weekend or right after it, there was an interview he did with SiriusXM NBA where he basically said, we're not a contender. But then he's also made comments after down 3-0 that were very Jimmy-like, we're not going out like this, that kind of thing. So I will just say he tends to be a little all over the place. Like, so it's like if we're parsing one, I think the problem with this one is it's the perception of what he may have wanted. If you have the perception that he wanted to be a 1A, wanted to lead, I'm thinking back to another comment here where he talked about being in Luka's class, right? That was a couple of years ago. If you want that, then I agree with you. You can't really say what he said, which is, obviously I know I need Jimmy to win. If we had Jimmy right now, I feel like it'd be a completely different situation. Then he says we probably wouldn't even be the 8th seed. Well, honestly, they probably would be the 8th seed if they were getting the Jimmy that was acting and playing the way that Jimmy was this year, right? Like they probably would have been the 8th seed. So I don't even know that that's accurate. I mean, I don't think they were getting out of the play-in or getting out of play-in seeding, okay, with Jimmy this year anyway, as it turned out. I mean, they would have had to finish ahead of Indiana and Detroit. And with the way that Jimmy was in that lineup, even without suspensions, I don't know that would have happened. But I guess this is why I'm conflicted on it. I appreciate him being honest, okay, even if the honesty tends to sort of go one direction to the next. To me, the bigger issue is looking forward on it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Right? Because he's up for an extension. And we've talked about the extension. And if you're talking about giving someone $50 million who's basically saying, I need this other guy to win, right? That's the problem with it, I think. Is that fair?
That's a big fucking problem, especially with the money that Bam is set to make. Just to be very clear, we've talked about this, and I saw some people talk about this on Twitter and on Discord. Make sure you check out the Discord, $2.99 to join. Is that Bam's money doesn't kick in next season, right? It kicks in the season afterwards, the extension money. You're going to have two guys on the roster that's going to eat up, a considerable amount of your, roster construction money. So you need those two guys to be to be the foundation, right, that you build upon. And obviously you're going to be working to find a guy that's the one that holds all of that together as the one. But that's hard to do with new CBA. And that's what we've been talking about for the last 2 seasons. When they try to make the Dame trade and, all that other stuff, you can't, all things considered, these are young guys in their 20s who in any other position in life would not really be looked upon as like the leaders, right? Unless they were doing something very mind-numbingly like abnormal. But they are, for what they are in their position, the leaders of this team. Your leader of this team who is going to be looked at as someone you build around can't say that. Especially when you about to take a lot of money, bro. Like you can't say that. You're shooting for $50 million. You and I did a pod just last week about what we would offer Tyler. And literally the next Monday, he even shot himself out of that one.
Well, I can't imagine. I'm with you on that. His agent can't be happy with this. I would think, because this is something that if you're the Heat and you're making an offer, you're saying, okay, I mean, do you want to be the guy or not? Now, honestly, the tape should dictate that, right? The tape should dictate whether or not he can be the guy. No, I get it, but saying this is not ideal. I'm with you on that. So again, I'm conflicted because I don't like criticizing players for what they say, because then they won't say anything. And obviously this has been eating at Tyler. And I want to get to another part of the quote that I do sympathize with him about. Okay. And I've mentioned before, I just think during the series, he probably just should have told Joe, I don't really want to talk about Jimmy right now. Because I know the way Joe asks questions, and Joe is very direct about his questions, and he probably asked him directly what probably the beat guys have not asked for weeks since the Jimmy thing played out. Because, again, Joe's parachuting in as a national guy. He's here covering the Cavs. But the national story, the only reason that anybody cares about the Heat right now is what happened with Jimmy this season, right? So Joe's parachuting in, and his angle is basically, this is a Heat team that was broken by what happened this year with Jimmy Butler. That's the angle. I know the angle Joe's coming in with. I don't blame him for the angle. Again, he's a national guy. That's the way that they're going to look at these things. But knowing that, probably the smart thing for Tyler to do there was to say, I don't really want to talk about Jimmy. We're in the middle of a series. That's probably what he should have said. It's probably what his agent would have wanted him to say. It's probably what the Heat would have wanted him to say, other than the Heat may end up saving some money now. But that's probably what he should have said. He didn't say that, and yet I'm reluctant to go after him about the comment because I don't want guys to clam up and say nothing. I think we heard a little from Bam in the article from Anthony Chang about the Jimmy thing, where Bam came off as hurt, okay, but not, but nothing else, okay, but that's, but beyond that, I don't think that he sort of spoke to it in quite the same way that Tyler did. I think that's a little bit different. So on the other side of this, I want to go to the part that I do sympathize with Tyler about. Again, because we're trying to be fair here, but I know for a lot of fans who've heard the comments and more will hear them, it probably rubbed them the wrong way. All right, I do want to mention one of our great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It's our friends over at Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. Realestateshopfl.com. Reach out to Javier and Amanda. They do a great job buying or selling your house here in South Florida. Huge Miami Heat fans, honest people. And again, they'll tell you what the best deal is possible for your house. They'll also show you a house that will be best for you. Again, based in Broward County, but they service the entire Tri-County area. Again, it's realestateshopfl.com. Reach out to Javier and Amanda today. You want honest brokers here. And again, they'll do a great job for you. Javier has been on with us on 5 on the Floor. Very big Heat fan, as you know. And he has some definite opinions about everything that's going on right now, too, because I see them on the text line. But reach out to him at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram or realestateshopfl.com. All right, I want to get to the other part of this comment. Oh, go ahead.
I want to do something to you that you did to me last week, right? We're going to switch. I want you at some point of this episode to take on Pat Riley. I want you to invoke Pat Riley. Become Pat Riley, Ethan, and you read these quotes as Pat Riley and give your opinion as Pat, as Coach Pat, as the Godfather Pat. Same Pat that said at the presser last year and called a certain person fragile. That Pat.
Okay, well, obviously, I know I need Jimmy to win. Oof. Yeah, that's not going to go over well. If we had Jimmy right now, I feel it'd be a totally, completely different situation. Yeah, not great. We probably wouldn't even be the 8th seed. Well, I think there might be a little sympathy in that situation because, again, Pat knows what the team went through. But yeah, so finding that middle balance of damn, we need him, but also understanding, that's his career and what he wants is ultimately his right to want what he wants. Okay, I think that comment. I understand that comment. I'm sympathetic to that comment. I don't know that the front office would love that comment because it does make it seem like there was player sentiment towards Jimmy in the locker room, which, by the way, that's not how it's come across. I mean, my understanding was by the end, it was pretty much Nico and Terry that were in Jimmy's corner, and that was about it. But again, not great. But this quote, I do sympathize with the last part of it. It was tough to be in the middle of both sides. It was. I was for him. It was for Bam. You've got a guy acting out, getting suspended. You're trying to take control of the team. You're playing every day. You're called fragile. You're out there for 75 games, as it turned out, 75, 76, 77 games. You're doing your job. This guy is already getting paid, doesn't want to do his job because he's not going to get paid in the future. I understand what Tyler's saying there. But this also sets, I am sympathetic to that, but this also sets the stage for kind of where this may go, because now Jimmy has set this example of if you don't get what you want, you pout and you stomp your feet. I mean, I can't see Tyler pulling a Jimmy if he doesn't get an extension offer. It doesn't seem like his personality. It's not the direction he's gone when he's been challenged before. But again, this is why this was not great organizational precedent. And I don't blame the organization for this part of it, unless you say they should have traded him sooner, which I know some do, but there's a whole debate about that. But it wasn't a great example that Jimmy was setting for others on the roster, for sure. And so again, I don't think Tyler would handle it this way, but I think when extension talks come up, the Heat make an offer. And I would hope that the way that this goes is if the offer is not to Tyler's satisfaction, then maybe they quietly say, well, maybe it's better to just trade me.
So Coach Pat, I'm so glad to be here with you. Last week there were some comments where a player on your team said he's interested to see, or he's curious to see how you guys would value him. And then you had these quotes come out this week. Just what are your thoughts, Coach Pat?
Coach Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, my thought is you're in the middle of a playoff series, just shut up and play is what he's going to think. I mean, I'm saying that's what he's going to think. Right? Right? That's where he's going to go with it. You're quiet because you that's what you know he think, right?
Okay. Sorry to break characters. Coach Pat, yes.
Yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get off my lawn, Eternal. That's what I would say. I think I'm going to break character here for a second because I can't do a good Riley. Okay. But I'm just, my overall point, my overall point on this is I respect his right to say it. I appreciate when guys are honest. I do know he was put in the middle of this. It's a tough situation. He became close with Jimmy at times over the past few years. I know they had some ups and downs, but I watched them interact. Sometimes it'd be like Jimmy be waiting for Tyler to go to dinner. It looked like they had, a pretty good relationship most of the time while he was here. At the same time, Tyler, as he's said to me and others, is an ambitious young man. That's a quote. Ambitious young player. That's a quote he uses for himself. So, I'm not saying he wanted to push Jimmy out. I don't think that's the case because if you look at the way that Jimmy's friends have reacted to Tyler. Remember, Tyler was the one guy who went up to Ernie and Marquise right after Jimmy, dipped. Okay, that when Jimmy came in here and scored whatever it was, 11 points, and then raced to the locker room and didn't address Bam or anybody else. But it was Tyler who went up to Jimmy's friends by the tunnel, right? So my feeling is that, and they've spoken about their warmth for Tyler. So I don't think there's a perception necessarily that Tyler was, sort of, get out of here so I can take over this team. But Tyler has expressed frequently that, he can handle more, he can play more, he can score more, and all of that, which again, I don't have a problem with that, any being ambitious either. And he was their best offensive player this year. There's no other two ways around that. So but at the same time, there's perception that Tyler benefited from Jimmy departing in terms of getting more shots. And also at the beginning of this season, Jimmy was upset about Roll. And when you look at Roll, I mean, what did the Heat do in training camp? Very first day of training camp, Jimmy contacted his agent and said, they're not involving me anymore. I've talked about that. Okay. I think Jimmy was upset about that because he thought it was going to affect his money. Wait. He did talk about that. Who were they involving more? Terry and Tyler, right?
And who else said something to begin the season? There's another person on the roster at the top of the roster after the first game. Okay. Bam said what going into game 2? I know you remember. What did Bam say?
No, I remember. No, Bam was uncomfortable with Roll too, right?
So let's bring that to
Bam was actually more direct about, well, not direct, but more. Bam was more direct. I wouldn't say direct is the wrong word. He was more.
Oh, he was direct though. No, you're right.
He was more direct about some. It seemed like discomfort with the way that everything was the offense was kind of steering towards a certain place. Now, we can debate that too, because, at Bam at times has not been aggressive enough when he's had opportunities, but and had a really rough first 2 months of the season. We're in agreement on that. Right. And then picked it up around the All-Star break. But I think all of this is, what all of this is. And that's why I'm not going to get too outraged about it, but I don't think it was the smartest thing for Tyler to say. Is that fair? Is that a fair middle ground on this?
I think you can be
at that time.
I think the experienced journalist in you, right, and the person that knows the front office, right, because I'm going to push on you a little bit more, Ethan. Mm-hmm. I think you can be a little bit more critical. I think you can be a little bit more critical. So before we close this out, before you say, I need you to be a little bit more critical. I'm not saying that you burn Tyler at the stake. I'm just asking you.
I don't have a problem calling it like I see it. I'm just saying I am sympathetic to what Tyler dealt with this year, most of which Jimmy and the organization caused by their their disagreements, which put Tyler very much, and Bam, both of them, okay? Bam in different ways. Bam, because he's the one who kind of had to be the face to the media, and he's the one who had to do all the community stuff that Jimmy refused to do, and all of that, okay? And Bam's the one who was the captain. Right, okay? All of that stuff. Okay, Tyler, it was more of an on-the-court thing where he had to carry because you didn't know if Jimmy was going to be there on a given night or not. The perception is that Tyler wanted to carry. And for those who have that perception, these comments are going to rub them the wrong way. Absolutely. There's no question about that. I am going to do this for you. I defend his right to say it. I appreciate when players are honest. Okay. I know he was stuck in the middle of this season. I know that was difficult. I also think he probably cost himself a little on that offer from the Heat. Probably. That's the way. I mean, because it's hard to make an argument to give someone $50 million and then say we need the 35-year-old who just left.
Bam had a game where he was the leading 3-point shooter right after these quotes. Mm-hmm. You and I last week. I'm letting you close because I'm not closed. I closed last week.
That's fine.
Where we said, when we was talking about the whole hypothetical of what Tyler could be paid and him going to the table and the tape of the playoffs tale being brought up, right? Mm-hmm. You have 2 playoff series last year and this year, two totally different circumstances without the same guy for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. But you had more time to prepare for without the same guy, right?
Right.
You are now sitting here, Ethan, Jay Skolnick, Pat Riley, right? You talked about last week, well, if Tyler has a couple of 30-point games, yada, yada. He's only had one. That first game was a struggle of offense. He still struggled. And also gave up 64 points in the first game. Right. Max Strus and Ty Jerome outplayed him in the third game.
Yes.
Floor is yours.
Floor is yours. That used to be one of our shows. I'll just say this. Tyler better play better tonight. That's all. That fair? I don't think they're winning the game anyway, but I think after making those comments, he needs to play better tonight. And probably shouldn't mention the Jimmy thing again. Probably not.
Okay, bold prediction. If he doesn't play well tonight, what do you think the reaction, not from outside, forget the fans. What do you think the reaction internal is if he?
Well, I think internally that's been set already for the most part. I mean, I think that's been set. I think, like I said, could this cost him $1 million or so in the offer? Maybe. I said that earlier in the pod. I think that's possible, but I think it's more so a conversation that has to be had. Like, okay, what do you think your capabilities are? I think that's the conversation when you start talking about the extension. What are your capabilities? What do you need next to you? And then how are we going to be able to pay for that? And how does your contract play into that? Those are the issues that are involved here. I hope that's a good close. Anyway, thanks, Eternal Bast. Follow him there. Playback.tv/5RSN. Discord. Again, off the floor. Check that out. I hope somebody says something interesting after the game tonight. I'm a reporter, a journalist at heart, Eternal. I don't like telling guys to be quiet. I don't.
I don't either. Like, listen, I want people. I hate that you got me close. I want people to be honest, right? I would say
I didn't have you closing.
I want people to be honest, man. But there's consequences to that.
Yes.
They get media training in the show.
Have a good one, everybody.